December 20th, 1943, 8 p.m., aboard ship. I'm going to say a little prayer tonight and hope it will be answered. Need I tell you? I want to tell you again how happy you have made me. You have been everything a husband would want of a wife. I respect your qualities, your ways, your manners, the way you strive to keep yourself informed on all subjects. It makes my heart swell with joy to hold you close, your lips on mine, with no compromise. I will live for the day when you and I will always be together. That hope has made my life a song, and every song brings you to me. You are my inspiration, my guiding star, my eternal light. I can dream now, dreams that will come true on solid foundation, thanks to our love. Dreams. In the year 1943, there were lots and lots of dreams. And in that year 1943, lots and lots of those dreams never came true. 1943, a wonderful year. In February of 1943, my mom and dad stood tall and proud on the altar of St. Casimir's Church in the Ironbound, Down Neck section of Newark, New Jersey. My mom stood in her ivory wedding dress, the long train, a bouquet of flowers in her hands, the white veil lifted over her face. And next to her stood my dad, tall and proud in his crisply ironed United States Army dress uniform. They looked into each other's eyes, smiled, and said, "I do." 1943, a wonderful year. 1943, a terrible year. Every single day in 1943, thousands and thousands and thousands of people died, killed. Lots of them outright murdered in this conflagration known as World War II. 1943, a terrible year. Now, exactly 1 year earlier, in February of 1942, my dad was doing what many of his contemporaries were doing at the time. He was sitting at a United States Army recruiter's office, filling out paperwork and answering questions. Now, the recruiter looked at my dad. "You grew up in a butcher shop?" "Yes." "You know how to cut meat?" "I'm a butcher, just like my father." Are you afraid of the sight of blood?" "No." "We're going to train you to be a medic." And that's what they did. They trained my dad to be a medic. And he was initially assigned to some Army bases and then assigned to the SS Argentina, a transport ship. Now, the Argentina was capable of taking thousands of soldiers across the Atlantic Ocean. And that SS Argentina was part of a convoy of ships that went together. As a matter of fact, one of them was one of those fancy Grace Line passenger cruise ships that the Army had converted into basically a bunkhouse on water. So my dad saw thousands of young boys jumping on these ships full of life, full of energy. He took them across the ocean, and then he brought them back, not as boys, but as men. Many of them glassy-eyed, wounded, broken men. Now, as a kid, growing up in the 1950s, I knew my dad had been in the war, but I also knew that he was not in mortal combat. So I just assumed he was safe, out of harm's way on that ship. It wasn't until recently, when my sister dropped off a box of correspondence between my mom and dad during those war years, mostly love letters and diary entries. It wasn't until I read those letters that I realized how much danger my dad was in. I didn't know that there were enemy submarines sighted right off the bow of the Argentina. I didn't know how much sleep my dad lost from the explosions of all those depth charges that they were dropping and exploding in the ocean to keep those German submarines at bay. Those Germans would have liked nothing more than to have blown that convoy out of the water. I didn't know how many trips my dad made across the Atlantic Ocean, back and forth and back. From New York and Boston to different places in Europe, to Africa, and to the Mideast. I didn't know that one of the Argentina's sister ships had been bombed and had been sunk in the Mediterranean. And reading those letters, there were a number of times when I just stopped and I read between the lines, and I came to a full realization that my dad was not sure that he would ever be coming home. Now, that letter that I was reading to you was from my dad to my mom aboard ship in late December of 1943. And reading through those letters, I came to realize the longing that my mom and dad had for wanting to be with each other. I mean, in December of 1943, they hadn't been married a year yet. And they would be separated all through those war years. And in late December, right at Christmas time, that was a time when I felt that feeling of longing that my mom and dad wanted to be together so badly. And their families at Christmas time, on Christmas Eve, would always gather. And I knew how badly my mom and dad wanted to be with their families. The families would gather on Christmas Eve in the evening. Brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, sons, daughters, all of them. They would gather for a special meal called Valia, where they would literally break bread, share the bread with each other, wish each other good wishes for the coming year, and then before supper they would pray and give thanks to everything that they had been provided with. I could picture my dad on that ship with the other men. I could almost hear one of them. Hey, they're going to be playing some music. Quiet down, quiet down. Now, the ship had loudspeakers throughout, and although there were times when radio silence would have been maintained, much of the time music was played, news broadcasts were made, and the men could listen. I could see my dad and those men congregating at one of those speakers. Hey guys, be quiet. They're going to be playing that new song. You know, the one that just came out for Christmas. I could picture my dad waiting for this young fella named Bing Crosby, to begin crooning this brand new song. I'll be home for Christmas. You can count on me. Please have snow and mistletoe and presents on the tree. Christmas Eve will find me where the love light gleams. I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams. I could picture those men listening to that song, their eyes cast downwards, some of them clenching their eyes shut, knowing full well that many of the men they were transporting across the Atlantic Ocean, maybe even the men right there in the room with them, for many of those men, they knew that they would never, ever be home again for Christmas, except in their dreams. Please have snow and mistletoe and presents on the tree. Christmas Eve will find me where the love light gleams. I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams. If only in my dreams. Dreams. In the year 1943, there were lots and lots of dreams. And lots of those dreams never came true. But for two young lovers who got married over there at St. Casmer's in the Down Neck, Ironbound section of Newark, New Jersey, dreams did come true.